Hey guys, Brenden, by the way, that audio guy. Today we're going to be talking about editing MIDI in the piano roll in Studio One. So first of all, if you don't know what MIDI is, check out my video, What is MIDI? So the piano roll is basically an area where you can edit the MIDI information that you record. So if you double click on here or you head to this edit window, you can access that information. So when you open that up, there's all of these little squares. So basically what these squares are is it tells your project, this is how long, how hard, and where we want you to play. So think of writing MIDI like writing code. So when you change velocity or you change the pitch, then you are telling it, okay, now instead of playing the C, you're going to play the D, and so on. And what's really cool, a lot of people think that MIDI has a bad name and it means cheap, but basically when you buy these instruments, you are telling it when you play this C, so in this case it's a drum, they recorded this drum at that given velocity. So right now it's at 97%. Okay, let's move it up to 100 just for ease of explanation. So they recorded this drum as hard as the drum is going to hit. So when you play that at velocity 100, that is as hard as they recorded that drum. And then, of course, you can change it to be like the snare. So here, this is the snare as hard as they recorded the snare. And the lower you move down that velocity, the softer that snare is going to be, right? So this doesn't apply to every single instrument. It depends on the instrument. If they are multi-velocity sampled, that's what that means. So let's get to editing the MIDI. So right here we've got a drum beat, and we want to make sure that we put it in time. So you can see that we have these grids here moving around, and they are not on time. So if we listen with our metronome, doesn't sound too pretty. So how do you do that? Well, this is a thing called quantizing. So we can select all and hit the Q on our keyboard. Now what that does is it will snap everything to this grid. So right now it's selected on 1/16. So that will divide into these 16th notes and snap everything to its nearest 16th. Whereas if we were to change that to, let's say, quarter, now all of a sudden we only have these quarter bars, and those little bars disappeared, and it will all of a sudden snap everything to quarter bars. So what's awesome about doing this is you can change notes that you accidentally mess up on. So let's say when I played originally, I hit a snare instead of a kick and it was too soft. So you can pull that down to the kick and then turn up the velocity either right here or right here. And your velocity is indicated in Studio One by how far up this bar is. So right here, this is low velocity, really high velocity, right? So you can change that right here. So let's just quantize all of these to make sure that we're on a grid. All right, so some cool things you can do is you can move this around. So I've selected everything, and let's say we want to just move this up an octave. So in the case of a piano, we just would have moved this up an octave, right? Or you can just completely change all these things around. Maybe you didn't want that timing, you wanted this guy down here, you wanted this guy over here, and like this, right? So there's a lot of flexibility using MIDI. And something that's awesome is if you didn't record anything and you have this MIDI information, then you can hold command and you can draw. So if you're not sure how to play drums on your keyboard, or you aren't very coordinated doing that, then you can just draw those in. So let's say we want a kick on every quarter note, so we're going to draw that in, and maybe a snare on our second hits. And then maybe we can add in some hi-hats. And what's cool is you can select these and hold Option and drag, and that will copy over everything that you're dragging. Now within the MIDI editing function area, you can go to Action and hit this thing called Humanize. So what that does is it will scatter this and make it sound more human. It will manipulate the velocity, it will manipulate the timing, so it doesn't sound as robotic. So if we hit that a couple of times, then it will sound like this, rather than this. So it feels a little bit more organic. That's one way if you're having struggles feeling like your drums are really programmed and nasty MIDI sounding, then you can try out that humanize function. So if you head up here to this Q, you can manipulate things like swinging. So let's say we want to swing this drum beat on eighth notes. So we're going to swing it, let's do 50%, 60. So now it's swung. We can make them triplets. Let's do 16th triplets. So these are just the very basics of the piano roll in Studio One. Obviously, there's a lot more stuff you can mess with, but this is the best place to get started. These are the key things that you need to know so you can get going really fast without having to mess with all this other stuff. Over time, I want you to learn it, but for right now, if you're just trying to get going and make songs, this is the place to be. Remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel and also sign up for the email list where you will get exclusive content that we only send to those people. And also head over to itsthatAudioguide.com, and I will see you guys soon.